You are asleep when it begins. Somewhere beneath you, a sound you will never forget if you live long enough to remember it. A deep metallic bang, like a hammer the size of a building striking the hull, once, then again. The whole ship shudders. 2 decks up, a glass slides off a table and shatters. The band stops playing, and for one long moment, 989 people hold their breath in the dark, somewhere in the middle of the Baltic Sea, and tell themselves it was nothing. It was not nothing. In 40 minutes, most of them will be dead. This is the story of the Estonia, the worst peacetime shipwreck in modern European history. And the part almost everyone gets wrong is this: the sea did not kill her. The storm that night was bad, but the Estonia had crossed worse and arrived on time. What sank her was a single piece of steel at the very front of the ship. A set of locks no bigger than a grown man's arm that someone on a drawing board years before had decided were strong enough. They were not strong enough. And by the time anyone understood that, the water was already inside. But this is not only the story of how she sank, it is the story of what came afterward, in the years of silence that followed, when the wreck was sealed shut by law, when divers were forbidden, when a grieving country was told to stop asking questions. Because the Estonia did not only take 852 people down into the cold, she took the truth down too, and some of it has never come back up. Let's start while the lights are still on. The MS Estonia was a massive 9-deck passenger ferry, stretching over 150 meters from bow to stern. Built in Germany, she was the pride of the Baltic Sea, running the regular overnight route between Tallinn and Stockholm. On this crossing, she carried an ordinary civilian mix. Inside her brightly lit corridors, people dined in restaurants, tried their luck at the casino, and relaxed in the saunas. There were families, pensioners, school groups, and truck drivers hauling cargo. It was a completely routine crossing on a vessel designed to feel like a floating hotel, safe, solid, and utterly predictable. No one aboard had any reason to doubt they would reach Sweden by morning. The Estonia was a roll-on, roll-off ferry built so vehicles could drive directly onto the ship through the bow. This design required a single, vast car deck spanning the entire length and width of the hull, completely uninterrupted by watertight bulkheads. While highly efficient for loading cargo, this open layout hid a lethal vulnerability. If seawater ever breached the bow and reached this open deck, it would trigger the free surface effect. Free to surge from side to side with the ship's roll, the shifting weight would rapidly destroy the vessel's stability. Seawater did not need to flood the lower compartments to make this layout fatal. To keep the ocean out of this vulnerable car deck, the ship relied on a 2-part assembly at the bow. On the outside sat the heavy steel bow visor, which swung upward to allow loading. Just behind it was the ramp itself, acting as the final barrier against the Baltic. This massive outer visor was secured by only 3 hydraulic locking devices. Approved as fully sufficient by regulators, these locks were the only things protecting the open deck from the crushing weight of oncoming waves. Yet, this design was already a known hazard. Over the previous 2 decades, similar ferries, including the Visby and the Viking Saga, had suffered serious visor failures in heavy seas. The warning signs were ignored. The hardware itself was a ticking clock. On the night of September 27, 1994, the Baltic Sea turned violent. Waves swelled to heights of 4 to 6 meters, slamming directly into the vessel's bow. Despite the punishing head seas, the bridge kept the Estonia running at nearly full service speed, pushing 16 to 17 knots to stay on schedule. Down in the lower decks, passengers heard loud, heavy metallic bangs echoing from the forward hull. The physical sounds of wave impacts punishing the steel visor locks. A crew member was sent down to investigate, but reported nothing out of the ordinary. Armed with this assessment, the officers chose not to slow down. They maintained their course, unaware that the unrelenting force of the ocean was already tearing the weak structural connections apart. At around 1:15 in the morning, the steel bow visor tore completely free from the hull. As the massive 55-ton visor broke away, it caught the vehicle ramp, dragging it partly open. The ship's primary barrier against the sea was gone. The Baltic now had a direct, unobstructed path straight onto the vast car deck. Freezing seawater rushed inside by the hundreds of tons within seconds. This flooding immediately triggered the free surface effect. With no watertight bulkheads to stop the water, the shifting weight sloshed violently from side to side, rapidly destroying the vessel's stability. The MS Estonia had crossed the point of no return. The ship listed hard to starboard, tilting so violently that corridors instantly became walls. Stairwells turned into sheer vertical shafts, trapping hundreds of passengers below who had no chance to claw their way upward. As the main generators failed, plunging the entire vessel into pitch darkness, those in the lower cabins faced an impossible climb to safety. On the bridge, crew members struggled against the gravity of the tilt as alarms screamed, transmitting a desperate, garbled mayday call at 1:22 a.m. to any station listening in the storm. Outside, a lucky few managed to scramble onto the wet, exposed side of the capsizing hull, while others plunged directly into the 10-degree Baltic water, fighting to cling to failing or overturned life rafts in the freezing wind. The massive ferry vanished beneath the waves just 50 minutes after the water first broke through. Of the 989 people aboard that night, only 137 survived. 852 perished, their bodies left largely unrecovered on the seabed. The Joint Accident Investigation Commission spent 3 years reconstructing the disaster, delivering its final report in 1997. This official account established a single, definitive failure chain. Investigators concluded that wave-induced loads on the Baltic far exceeded the strength of the bow visor's locking devices. The report identified unrealistic design assumptions as a primary cause. The attachments were simply never built to withstand such heavy sea conditions. When these weak locks failed, the 55-ton visor tore free, pulling the ramp open. This allowed the rapid flooding that doomed the ship, creating the baseline for all future investigations. In 1995, Sweden, Finland, and Estonia signed a treaty declaring the Baltic seabed a protected grave, outlawing all diving and recovery efforts. For grieving families denied the return of their loved ones, this legal shield felt more like state-imposed silence than respect. That silence broke in 2020. A covert documentary team sent a robotic camera to the wreck, discovering a 4-meter-high tier in the starboard hull. This footage forced authorities to reopen limited technical surveys, splitting public opinion between those who accept the official explanation of seabed impact damage and those who believe the hull holds a darker secret. The Estonia exposed structural flaws in how maritime regulators certified roll-on, roll-off ferries. For years, naval architects warned that standard bow visor designs relied on calculations that ignored realistic wave forces. Yet, classification societies approved these systems without requiring dynamic load testing or redundant locks. When the disaster occurred, the immediate response was to seal the site, creating a second crisis of transparency. Maritime legal experts argue that the 1995 treaty prioritized state liability over forensic clarity, blocking independent assessments even when new evidence, like the starboard hull breach, came to light. To prevent future stalemates, reformers propose mandatory resurvey clauses for protected wrecks, alongside stricter, real-time reporting of all bow door incidents across active fleets. Families also demand clear protocols that guarantee their right to recover remains. While international regulators point to subsequent SOLAS updates as proof of progress, the unresolved legal battle over the Baltic seabed suggests that safety and closure require complete, uncompromised access to the facts. The Estonia remains sealed in Baltic silence, but the truth refuses to stay buried. Today, we still tolerate known risks under the guise of progress. The sea did not kill them. Our blind trust in a fragile lock did. Share your thoughts in the comments below.